What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to basketball. And more importantly, welcome back to our NBA season preview series, the series where we're going to break down all 30 NBA teams before the start of the regular season. In these videos, we go extremely in-depth. We're going to talk about everything from rotations, what's their salary cap situation look like, what kind of draft assets they have, their depth charts, what's their off-season looking like, everything that you need to be ready for the start of the regular season. In this video, we got the Phoenix Suns, which is always a fun team to talk about, so make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment. I've responded to every single comment on my YouTube channel up to this point, and I intend to keep on doing so. All right, let's get into it. Alrighty, y'all, as you can see, there is a lot to go over with this team in the Phoenix Suns. But for those of you that don't know, this is my season preview spreadsheet that I've built. I like to build spreadsheets for a lot of my videos just because I guess I'm good at spreadsheets and stuff like that. But it helps me articulate my thoughts, put visuals behind everything, so I'm not just talking to you guys, right? But if you want access to these spreadsheets, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is leave me a comment below saying like, hey, I'd like access to the spreadsheet. I'll then give you a link to join my Discord. Hop on the Discord. I'm easy to find in there. Shoot me a DM just saying, hey, I was a person from the video, can I have the spreadsheet? I'll give it to you there. And hey, stick around the Discord afterwards. We've got daily conversations going on here, people doing trade ideas, trade suggestions, or just like what do we think about this in the NBA? Join the discussion. I think it's a fun thing. But anyway, we've got the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns came into last season with a lot of hype, to say the least. Obviously, they had built a new big three, right? They had traded for Kevin Durant like the year before, and then in this offseason, they had acquired Bradley Beal for really not that much. Instantly, we looked at this team and we were like, okay, they've got three of the most deadly offensive players in basketball. Three guys that at any single moment could get you 40+ points. That's insane. That puts you in title contention just in itself, right? The rest of the team was a little bit lackluster. They'd acquired a new center in Yusuf Nurkic. They'd acquired a decent role player in Grayson Allen. But the rest of the team was pretty less than desirable. And most notably, they didn't have a point guard on the roster. And we were like, how's that going to work? What do we think of this? Is this going to work or something like that? And to say that it didn't work isn't maybe the best way of putting it. Look, this team went into the first round of the playoffs and just got mollywopped by the Timberwolves, right? And that Timberwolves team was playing great defense. They were flowing. Things were going good, but the Suns didn't look good come playoff time, right? But here's the thing. The big three of the Suns just didn't play much together last season, and when they did, the numbers were pretty incredible. But there were so many injuries last year between KD, Booker, and Bradley Beal that we just never really got to see these three come together. So that's going to be a big talking point of this video of being okay, are these three just going to be able to suit up together, right? Because we just don't know what we don't know yet. And so when we talk about this team, 49-33 is still a good record considering they were in the West and everything. It's a little bit tougher out there. This team is obviously contending, right? There's a couple different things that I have to pick from in here as to what their franchise status is. This team is 100% contending, especially when you look at their salary numbers. Is this the most expensive team in basketball, or is it Boston? I actually don't know, but it's probably pretty close. But anyways, let's talk about goals and stuff. I always like to bring up goals at the beginning of the video because then as we're going throughout other parts of this video, you'll have those in the back of your head for when we kind of touch on each of those. So here's my 3 goals for the Suns this year. Keep the big three on the court. That's easier said than done, right? How do you truly prevent injuries and everything? I'm not a doctor. I'm not great at all that, understanding of load management and everything like that. Just not my area of expertise. But obviously, for this team to have any semblance of success, they've got to keep those three on the court together. They're 3 of the best players we have in the game today. So keep them on the court. Good things should happen, right? Next thing, run an actual offense. Maybe they didn't have time to implement stuff like that last year is something that I've heard from people. Look, there were so many guys coming in and out of the lineup and stuff like that. It's hard to establish things like this. I'm going to be real and tell you guys, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, I guarantee you don't need to sit down and teach them an offense. You tell them what offense you're running. They just know all this stuff already. I'm telling you guys from a guy that's worked with these people before, you don't have to sit and have a couple practices where it's hey, we're going to be teaching Iverson action with this and horns up, down, with some sort of pistol over here or something like that, and then spend a couple days doing it. You just tell them that and they go, okay, yeah, that sounds good. We've done this 1,000 times. What are we calling it? That's just going to be their question, right? What do we want the call out to be? And they can do it. They've got the timing down and everything. Yes, there's getting a feel for certain guys because look, you break plays and stuff like that, and sometimes you want to go into more isolation type heavy things, but I think this team really lacked having a lot of structure in their offense. I couldn't necessarily understand the progressions they were trying to go through, and progressions isn't a word we use in basketball too much. It's more of a football term, but I think that's a good term to kind of throw at this to be okay, so like we're coming down the court, right? Somebody's the point guard or someone else is bringing the ball up the court. What are we kind of looking to get into first? What kind of actions are we trying to do? Are we trying to get KD the ball like on the block or something like that? Do we have Booker running around some curls or something like that? What's Beal doing during this? Like I just be curious to like establish some sort of like order to this. And then with like the other rotations, like you've got 3 like alpha scorers and everything. So what's the actual structure to it? Because it just looked like sometimes they didn't know what they were supposed to do. So I'm hoping that we're going to see a little bit of a change in there. And then the last thing is just more of a personnel thing. Can we find like another lengthy wing to add to this team or something, like a real like defensive type player? Because look, we've got enough offense on this team, right? Like, I don't think anybody's worried about this team scoring enough points. Like, I think they're going to be fine in that department. Who are we going to have that's going to be like that switchable wing defender and everything for when you go up against guys like that? We all know you need guys like that on a championship team. We've got like kind of a guy like that on this team. And obviously Durant is still awesome, but like, we could use another guy like that on the team. So with those goals in mind, let's go throughout the rest of the video and let's talk about what they did this offseason, because it was a nice offseason for Phoenix. Alrighty, here we are, the Phoenix Suns offseason, all summarized on this little page here. There's a lot going on here, so let's not waste any time in going into this. So 3 categories I always break the offseason down into: drafted players, you guys understand what that means, good for you. Player departures, players that were on the full-time roster last season, no longer on the full-time roster, right? And then players brought in, so other players throughout the NBA that are now on the full-time roster, right? So starting off with drafted players, the Suns used up their picks pretty smart, right? Like Ryan Dunn was a guy going into the draft that people had some pretty solid opinions on, and we all kind of agreed as to what he is. Lengthy defender, probably one of the best defensive prospects we've seen coming into the NBA in a little bit, and just like his instincts, where he's able to be on the court, his length and everything, how often he's like poking balls loose, things like that. Like he just gets the game, right? Offensively, he was very limited in college. Like his offense is basically being smart at cutting to the hoop and finishing over people for layups, things like that. If this guy had any semblance of an offensive game, he probably would have been a top 10 pick, right? But it just didn't really exist for him. So I don't think that's such a bad pick, though. You're getting like a little bit older of a dude coming out of college that's gonna know like how to play defense right away in the NBA. You could make a case that this guy should be in the rotation like early on or something like that. I know his summer league numbers were rough. There's no correlation to like summer league and NBA performance and everything like that. And we know he doesn't have like a great offensive game. Let him develop things like that. I think it comes with time or whatever. And look, he's going to be around 3 of the best scorers in the NBA, so he's going to have plenty of opportunities to slip down like the court or something like that and try to get an open look, punch on someone, because he is a pretty good athlete. So I think that there's a clear role for him on this team, and I think that's a great pick. And then we got Oso here out of Marquette. You listed him as like a power forward. He's more of a college power forward type. Like the outside look isn't necessarily maybe there like you'd want it to be for a guy of this position. Again, a little bit more of a older, more mature player coming out of college, right? He was a good post scorer at times. And is he going to get a ton of burn this year? Not really, but here's the smart thing, right? Phoenix did a really smart thing because they pay a lot of money on this team. They pay a ton of money to have this team exist. But what you do is you use these end of the first round picks, Ryan Dunn, and then like end of the second round picks, Oso, here to like fill out the back half of your roster with cheap players that could do something. So that's why they picked older dudes that are like, okay, if we had to throw them on the court for whatever reason, at least they have a little more maturity than some like 19-year-old or something like that. That's a project for us. Like, are these dudes going to be superstars? Most likely not. I mean, we obviously hope that they will be, but at the end of the day, these guys are guys that can get on the court and they can somewhat contribute, even if it's not at like a super high level. We feel good about them. So you brought in a little bit of size and you brought in a guy that could be a wing defender for you. I think that's a good draft overall. Moving on to player departures. Eric Gordon, probably the most notable player to leave. Obviously, lengthier but shorter guard. He's a weird body type. Gets his hands on a lot of passes and stuff like that, but that's really all he really does defensively is like getting passing lanes, which is valuable, but getting a little bit older, he's not quite the defender he used to be. And then his shooting is obviously pretty crazy. His shot chart in itself is always interesting because he'll take very deep shots, but he's always been a good shooter. He's always been a good scorer. People forget, like, before injuries and everything, like, people thought that this was going to be like an all-star level player for the Clippers at one point in Eric Gordon, but he's had a nice career. He's going to be in Philly this next year, kind of doing the same thing, just being a spacer and stuff. So you lost him, but in all honesty, like, it was more important for them to go find like a point guard or something like that. They still have Grayson Allen on the team. They were kind of redundant players in that sense, so not the biggest deal. Drew Eubanks was their like backup center last year. At times it was Bull. Drew Eubanks is good for fearlessly trying to finish over people at times. Not the greatest defender, not the greatest rebounder in the world, but he was a guy with some size that can move a little bit, and sometimes that's all you need when you got the big three out there. So not a huge loss there. Nasir Little, where is Nasir Little now? I don't even remember. You guys let me know in the comments, but I feel like Nasir Little is somewhere else. Why do I want to say like Milwaukee or something like that? No, somebody else in Milwaukee, I think. But Nasir Little didn't really end up getting on the court at all for them, and it's honestly good that they got rid of him because his contract wasn't like that great considering like how little flexibility they have. They repurposed that money into some much better things this year. So Nasir Little, decent defender, undersized forward. I'm not always a fan of players like that. It doesn't make sense to me when I can't figure out what position you're supposed to play and what your exact skill set is. And speaking of that, David Roddy, again, we talked about him in a previous video now that he's on Atlanta, I believe. And you've got this guy that probably should be playing like the power forward position, but he's like 6'4", and like I don't really like understand exactly what I should do with him. But they're both tough basketball players, so you know, is what it is. I wouldn't call these extreme losses by any means. And then two other ones that were technically on the roster at the end of the year, Isaiah Thomas and Thaddeus Young. Obviously, IT just didn't really end up suiting up for them much last year, and neither did Thaddeus Young, and neither of them have been picked up by anybody, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's the last time that we've seen them. So if this is a farewell to IT and Thad Young, wonderful, wonderful careers, right? Thaddeus Johnson, and then obviously Isaiah Thomas's run with the Celtics were awesome. So you lost Eric Gordon, who was a contributor last year, but I'm not tripping over anybody else. Like, you didn't really lose anybody of that importance. But who did you bring in? This is a much more interesting conversation. The first one, Tyus Jones, right? We talked about they didn't have a point guard last year, and people were like, oh, how's that going to work? When we talk about trying to implement like an actual offense and making things like run smoothly and things like that, Tyus Jones is the ultimate game manager in the NBA. It's him and Trey, right? Those are the two guys that are like known for their whole assist to turnover ratio. They just don't make mistakes, play quality defense, can hit from the outside a little bit. If we go look at Tyus Jones, oh, he's not going to appear on this one necessarily, but Tyus Jones is a more than capable basketball player. He's on the Wizards last year, so some of his numbers took a bit of a hit, but that team was just such a mess and everything that, like, yeah, everybody's numbers were going to dip a little bit, but he's going to come in at most likely a starting point guard for them, steer the ship from him. This is like his dream job. I mean, he took a minimum contract just to join this team because he's like, okay, I'm going to look so good probably around these guys that I'm going to get paid the year afterwards. And like, yeah, good for him, man. I would absolutely do that if I was him. Like, he's like, I just have to pass it to Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and like Kevin Durant. Okay, yeah, let me go get on my 11 assists a game, right? Nice, easy, makes a ton of sense. Mason Plumlee, definitely an improvement over Drew Eubanks. Mason Plumlee's getting up there in age a little bit, but still gets above the rim pretty well. He's a really good passer, which again, works really well when you've got all these other guys that like to score and move off of other actions and stuff like that. So already they've put two guys on the team that should crack the rotation and should be just like, look, they've been around the NBA for a while. They've been on a lot of winning teams. They know how to play the game the right way, and they're going to be able to play around star players, right? So makes a ton of sense. And then you added Monte Morris, who's kind of like, when he was at his peak, was pretty much Tyus Jones. Like, they were pretty much equivalents, right? Like, Monte Morris was an ultimate game manager type of guy. The three-point shot was there when he was in Denver and everything. And then he got hurt, and there was a bit of a step back. He didn't quite find it in Minnesota this year after he got traded to them and everything. And a lot of us thought that was going to be a really good trade, but he just wasn't able to find his footing. Let's hope that with a whole healthy offseason that he can get back to it. So then this team would have gone from like no capable point guards to two very good game managers. And, you know, if you're staggering your star minutes very well, you've always got one of these guys in as well. You should have possibly the most deadly offense in basketball this year. So I think a wonderful offseason all said and done. Again, you got rid of some players that weren't contributing to you at a high level. You brought in a couple of young guys that maybe could do something for you, and then a couple guys that should fit around your stars really well. Wonderful offseason. I think it's an A-plus offseason for the Suns. It's as good as you could have asked it to be considering the contract situation they were in. And honestly, just shout out the Phoenix GM. He's been doing a lot of like little maneuvering of things when their hands are very much tied salary-wise. So credit to him. And, you know, speaking of that, let's go take a look at the current roster and their salary numbers. Alrighty, y'all. Y'all know this is my favorite whole tab on the entire document and everything. This is basically the ideal off-season spreadsheet. I think this sheet is cool for a couple of reasons. Obviously, we can take a look at like their whole roster and everything. What's their salary situation looking like? What's the team like? Forecast looking like number-wise? Spoiler alert, it's not good for Phoenix, but, you know, they're making do with it. Their draft pick situation, that one will be quick to go through. And then an overall depth chart. So So we can really get a view as to what kind of assets we got with this team so that we can start to talk about moves and stuff like that. And we'll do a couple trade simulations to see how we can make this team a little bit better. Spoiler alert, that's going to be hard as well. But regardless, I think this is a great sheet for that reason. Let's start talking about draft picks. I think that's a good place to start. All right, let's zoom in on these draft picks. As promised, it's not going to take much time to go through it. I will say that some picks not listed do have like protections that are just like, there's like some swap rights or things like that going on. So there are more picks than this available. It's just we don't really have them as like actual assets to use. But yeah, no, this team has exhausted most of its resources. But I actually want to give some credit because like these like second round picks didn't really exist before they made like a trade during the draft or whatever to acquire some more second round picks. And look, a team like this that's just looking for like role players to stick into things, like those are the kind of picks that you need. And they keep finding ways to like add a couple more second round picks to their arsenal in good trades. So shout out their GM and everything, doing a good job for them. But what do they got? They got a couple Nuggets picks from the trade of going and getting a Deron Holmes or whatever. They've still got a 31 second and their 31 first, which they realistically probably won't even be able to touch because of how the aprons work nowadays. For those of you that don't know, the aprons, if you've been in them for a certain amount of time, and we'll talk about these more in depth in just a second, but if you've been in the aprons for a certain amount of time, they don't let you trade certain picks anymore, so they're most likely just not even going to have this as an asset either. You actually saw the Timberwolves do something clever in the draft like that, where they used like their 31 pick or something like that this year, because they were like, well, you're going to take away access to it because of where we're at in the apron anyway, so we might as well use it now because we're trying to win now. So clever move by them. But let's talk about the team's salary cap space. For those of you that don't know, there's 4 levels to the NBA salary cap that you have to be aware of, and I go much more in depth in these in the first couple videos of the series, the Celtics and Grizzlies videos, so watch those if you want a more in-depth breakdown. But in essence, here's a quick synopsis. Cap space line, basic thing in all of sports, right? Like there's a cap line. They've exhausted that one. Luxury tax, once you cross this one, meaning when it hits 0, you're going to pay a lot more for your team, right? And then you have the first and second aprons. Those are new, added to the NBA in an effort to basically not let teams like this form anymore. The NBA was sick of star players requesting trades all the time and all these other moves just happening willy-nilly everywhere. It's not good for like the NBA's financial numbers and everything and their fan base numbers to have players just moving around all the time. And personally, I didn't like it either. I think it was kind of annoying to see people moving around all the time. So they've put these aprons in place to basically say, okay, all the best teams, once you cross these aprons, which the Suns have done a pretty good job of. As you can see, they're almost $30 million past the second apron, which is crazy. I actually don't even think you'll be able to like... No, you can get past this, but you're not going to be able to like trade for players and get past this. I'll explain in a second, but in essence, these aprons are put in place so that trades stop happening and stuff like that. I think it's good for the NBA, and I think it's better for them going forward. I think it adds a layer of strategy, but they're going to lock down all the best teams to be like, okay, yeah, we're not letting you add anybody else to the team. We're not going to let you go trade for someone else. But the way that the NBA is set up, and that's why I was saying there is a way to get like to this much negative money now, if you will, you can always re-sign your own players in the NBA. That's a rule you have to remember. You can always re-sign your own players. Like if you drafted a guy, you can keep giving him max contracts. You could have like 10 of your own. You could draft 10 players and give them all max contracts if you really want to. Like you have the right to do that, right? Those max contracts all look a little bit different, right? Just because of other rules, but you can go as far into it for your own players as possible. But when you cross this second apron, I can't go add, say, DeAndre Ayton back to this team, right? Or something like that. Or like Joel Embiid. Because once you're past this apron, you have to like completely balance out the money. Or you have to go backwards, right? So you either have to spend less money taking a player that costs less money, or it has to be like a 1-for-1 perfect salary trade. And so that's why it's like, okay, it's like impossible then to add better players, right? Because those players cost money. So you'd either have to like trade Kevin Durant to do it or something like that, or something else, right? They've made it incredibly difficult to do that going forward. But the Suns have no more roster flexibility. They can only go and sign minimum contract dudes, and they actually can't even, because they're in this far into the apron, they can't play in the buyout market either. So for more or less, this is what the Suns team is going to look like this year. Maybe some second round picks happen. They do have a lot of minimum contract guys, so maybe something like that happens. But otherwise, this is probably going to be your Phoenix Suns roster for this year. So that's why I say the trades are going to be difficult. But anyway, let's talk about the current roster and everything. You've got Durant, Beal, Booker, right? I don't need to talk about why Kevin Durant's such a good basketball player. He's a really good basketball player. 2 years left on the deal. I don't have to explain to you why Devin Booker's so good. Obviously, both of these guys just had great Olympic runs and everything. Booker was awesome in the Olympics in the sense that he knew how to be a great role player. I think we forget how good of a defender Devin Booker can actually be when he locks in and wants to be one. So I'll be curious to see if he kind of takes more of that like star role player attitude. I've used that to describe Paul George a lot as a guy that can mold himself to be whatever type of star player you need him to be. I'll be curious to see if Booker comes in with that attitude again this year. And then we got Bradley Beal, which I want to talk about him more than anybody else in this video because I think it's important. Because there's just, if you go online right now and you're in the online basketball space like I am, you just see a lot of Bradley Beal slander, and that's just so like inappropriate and not like okay to do. Like, Bradley Beal was hurt most of last season, and we all remember the playoff run that he had this last year. It wasn't good. It was a pretty rough 4-game stretch for him. I've never seen Bradley Beal play that bad in my life, right? But here's the thing. Bradley Beal is like multi-time, like all-star, all-NBA type dude. Like, this guy can get you 30, 40 points any single night, right? And just looking at last season, right? Are we really going to say that a guy that averaged 18 points a game, 5 assists, 4.5 rebounds on 50-40, and where's his free throw percentage? 81%. Like, that's not a bad season. That's a really good season. And then I hear people say like, oh, well, normally he's scoring like this many points per game or whatever. And so I actually did some research, and I wanted to know how many NBA teams have actually had like 3 20-point per game scores on a team, and then where have they actually gone after that? And so I did some research, and there's been like 10 in all NBA history. And for reference, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker both scored 27.1 points per game last year, which is nuts, right? Absolutely nuts. And so the 10 like highest 3-man combos ever, right? Like those teams, this team was very, very close to being like all of those. And so if we want Durant and Booker to keep scoring the same amount, and we want them to like be on par with all those other ones, basically Durant and Booker are going to need to drop to like 23 points per game, and Beal needs to like go up to like 23 points a game. So like, it just doesn't matter, right? It just doesn't matter. Like, those teams often do perform pretty well when they have 3 20-point per game scores, but we're talking teams that they have guys that are like 22 points a game, 21 points a game, and 20 points per game. Like, it's not going to happen. There's just only so much time in the basketball game, right? So if you get these kind of numbers out of Bradley Beal, that is incredible, and that is amazing. What we need to improve is the 53 games played, right? Like, it's not enough. We need more time of him on the court. Durant actually played most of the season last year, which that's awesome. The turnovers were kind of high, but again, we didn't have like an offense set up and everything. So I just don't want to see Bradley Beal slander. Like, for those of you that like want to like narc on him for like a bad playoff series and everything, like, I don't know. I just think you're kind of dumb, in all honesty. Like, it's just, if we judged everybody by their worst moments all the time, all of us would be the worst people in the world, right? Like, Bradley Beal's had so many great moments in his career. Just like, lay off the dude, okay? Going on to Jusuf Nurkic. Actually a good center for them, funny enough. I've never been like the biggest fan of Nurkic. I've never like disliked the guy either. I've just never been quite sure what I'm going to get out of him. But what you did get out of him are really, really good defensive numbers. Solid rebounder, played his role really well. He's a good center for them, and he's got 2 more years left in his deal, so shout out Jusuf Nurkic. Grayson Allen was the best shooter in basketball last year. Dude was stroking it. If we can go over to Grayson Allen here, we've got a 46% 3-point percentage on like 6 a game. Yeah, that's pretty gnarly. He was also getting you like 4 rebounds and 3 assists a game, kept the turnovers relatively low for how much he actually did have the ball at times. So I think if we add more point guards to this and we get an actual system going, like, I can't even imagine what he's going to be able to do. Like, is it realistic for me to think he's going to shoot 46% from 3 on that many attempts again? No, probably not, but is he probably still going to be an elite shooter? Yeah, probably. Grayson Allen's pretty good at this shit. So, wonderful role player to have around all these guys, because, man, does he bring a lot of gravity. Let's actually look at his shooting chart. All right, so here's Grayson Allen's shooting chart last year. Apparently does not like the left corner very much, but everywhere else, man, dude is hot, right? And you can see he doesn't waste much time taking other shots in the court. He's solid enough around the rim and everything like that. This is a very valuable basketball player to have on your team. That's awesome. Royce O'Neal was a guy that they went and picked up last year. Again, that's kind of the lengthier defender that we're looking for. Getting a little bit older nowadays, and you look at some of the numbers that he had last year. He was getting you 8 points a game, and this is just in like his his time with the Suns. 5 3-point attempts per game, about 38%. That's awesome. If we can get that out of Royce O'Neal again, he can continue to play solid enough defense. Great. Josh Okogie got a new deal and everything with Phoenix, which was a little bit higher than we anticipated. But again, you can pay as much money to your own guys as you want, right? And so that's how the NBA works. Josh Okogie, if he had any semblance of shooting whatsoever, could be so valuable to this team. Again, he kind of falls into that undersized forward situation, but he is such a pest defensively that you're like, okay, that's his role. He's out there to play defense, right? But the problem was teams leave him completely wide open, and he cannot convert on things whatsoever. Let's actually take a look at his shooting chart, because that should be a fun thing to look at. And I'll also just show you guys like how all of this works even. So submit this, go, we wait here for a second. But like, I can't tell you how many Suns games I watched last year where just nobody guarded Josh Okogie. But you see him pick up people full court. He's getting steals in that like pressing situation and stuff. But yeah, look at this. Like, all his shot attempts were either like right here at the paint or primarily in the corners, because that's where he was standing on offense, and people just let him shoot, and he could not hit it. What did he finish off with like a percentage wise? Where's old Josh Okogie? Here he is right here, 30%. That's honestly better than I thought it was, because man, there were games where he would go like 0 for 8 or something like that. And you're like, ooh, yeesh. But anyway, Josh Okogie's on the team. He's an interesting option to throw out there. If he can get any sort of 3-point shot going, great. Mason Plumlee, Tyus Jones, Ryan Dunn, talked about them. Bull's still on the team. He's fun. Like, he's still not the most effective basketball player in the world, but he's got an interesting talent set. And he brings size, if nothing else, right? Like, he's going to block a couple shots. He's going to do a couple crazy things just because he's got such a weird skill set and everything. So I like the idea of keeping Bull on the team. You got Damian Lee on the team again, who is probably most famous for being within the Curry family, right? But in his like prime and everything, he's been hurt a lot recently. Really good 3-and-D player at like the 2-guard spot. So maybe he's healthy again. Maybe he finds a way onto the court in that way. Then we got Monte Morris. We talked about him, and Oso, again, just a young guy to kind of have on the bench. And look, you can have this guy for 4 years because they used like the second round exception on him or whatever. So they got 4 years of him being really cheap on the team, and they could like cut him at different points. That's awesome, right? They're in a really good spot with this team. The only guys coming off the books are like minimum contract dudes or whatever, which you could always bring back. Tyus is probably going to cost you more after this season, but maybe you're just able to bring him back anyway. And this team has 1 roster spot left. So if the right player becomes available or something like that, they can do that and they can take somebody in, which I think is a really smart move. And you're seeing a lot of teams do that. So we'll see how they fill out the last roster spot or whatever. I think it'd be cool if they found a way to add like another wing or something like that. I don't know exactly who that'd be. Like, the only people coming to mind are like Doug McDermott and Chetty Osman right now. And I don't think those are the exact answers that they need, but I don't think they're bad options either. So now that we've done this, let's see if we can mock up a trade or two, right? Like, there's got to be some sort of trades that exist. I'm not going to trade Booker, Beal, Kevin Durant, or anything like that. And I feel like I don't need to necessarily go through the depth chart with you guys too much. Like the starting lineup's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. The bench is questionable a little bit, but it's got some interesting options like we talked about, so I'm not going to break that down too much. But let's go see if we can't find like another wing or something like that, because if there's any question, it is like at these forward spots. So I don't know, let's go see what we can do. All right, so I'm actually having trouble coming up with trades, so I'm going to take you guys through the process that I'm trying to think through and see if we can't come up with something. So we either have to match salaries perfectly because we're in the second apron, or we have to trade for like somebody cheaper or something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to like minimum contracts or something like that and see like what kind of cheap players are out there, something like that, to work with. Because who can we trade realistically? Like, we're probably okay with trading Okogie, and that's a good reason that he's even on the team, because he gives us some trade flexibility. Like, you could trade a Nurkic or a Grayson, but I think I'd rather just have them on the team. I think I'd rather just have Royce O'Neal. And so then it's just minimum contracts after that. So if we go over to like player salaries, we can work with $8 million because we have Josh Okogie, right? And so that's probably the one guy of substance that we can trade. And what do we have? 8.25. So here's Josh Okogie. Anybody below this, we can trade for. So is there somebody that we want here? Like, we're not going to get Kelly Oubre. We're not going to get Jaden Ivey or something like that. Probably not B-Ball Paul. So like, what are we looking for? We're looking for like some sort of wing or something that we can add to the team. Like, Ayo Dosunmu would be like a cool type of player. I don't think we necessarily need him. Nasir Little was someone that they traded. Where is Nasir Little now? Oh, because this was his salary the year before. That's why. I don't know where Nasir Little is now. Like Kenny Hustle, I don't think they're going to make a deal with them necessarily. So who are we looking at? Like a Zaire Williams would have been interesting if you could try to bring him in, but it's a bit too late for now. Is there a Corey Kispert deal that could work out? He's not really the lengthy wing that you want, so we got to keep looking. All right, is there any way, we're back on Fanspo, by the way. Is there any way the Clippers can help us out here in some capacity? Because I think we're all anticipating that the Clippers are going to have one of these seasons where like they kind of try to give an effort at the beginning and then they probably become sellers at the end. That's what's suggested to me by like how all their contracts are set up. So we need people cheaper than like the 8.2 million right here that we would send over to them, right? So they get Josh Okogie. Who do we want back? What I'm hoping to do is like some sort of combo where like, could we take back Nick Batum and like Amir Coffey or something like that? Like, do we have another player that we could like throw their way to make them happy? Like maybe it's Oso or something like that. I don't know. Like we don't necessarily need to trade him. Like let me just actually make sure that the numbers work like without that, because like this should work. It doesn't work. Oh, it's so close. Okay, so let's throw Oso into this to actually make it work. Where did Oso go? So let's say we're sending him over to the Clippers as well. They get a young player out of it as well. Yeah, the only reason it's saying it can't work is it's because these guys were recently signed or whatever. So it's whatever. Nick Batum and Amir Coffey, lengthier, like guard wings or whatever that you could throw out on the court, could be interesting in that case. They're cheaper, but then you would supplement them with like those like last couple picks, because the Clippers don't have a ton of picks to work with as well. You're not getting first round picks for these guys that you're trading, so maybe you send them over like 2 seconds or something like that, and then this becomes like your final trade. I could see something like that kind of working out, but otherwise I'll go look and see if there's any other minimum contract dudes that can be traded. Like the other names that like come to mind are like Javon Carter from like Chicago or something like that. It's on a cheap deal that they could maybe use his position in. Like AJ Griffin seems like he might be walking away from basketball. Maybe you can get Atari Eason from Houston somehow, but you probably got to pay a little bit more to go get him. Otherwise, like, I'm not completely sure. Maybe there's somebody overseas that they could still sign in some way or fashion. I don't know. You guys are gonna have to let me know with this one, because I'm looking through the names and everything. Like Watanabe was on the team last year. Not quite sure that's gonna still work out. He sounds like he wants to play overseas at this point, so that's kind of a tough one. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not seeing a lot of other guys that are gonna be able to fill that role. The lengthy wing position is like the hardest one to get in basketball, right? It's really hard to supplement that and find that. Torian Prince, they're probably not giving him up, right? Kankar, they're probably not giving him up. So, no, you guys let me know what kind of trade ideas you have, because this one's really the only one I could kind of think of. But I think this could be a good deal for them. So, I don't know. Let's go talk about rotations. Alrighty, we're here on the rotation screen. I always put a question mark on this because I'm always like, yeah, I'm not so sure what exactly they're going to do, right? I mean, how are we ever going to know? But I think this is a fun exercise just to be like, where ideally would we like to have a lot of these things? And you'll see I actually only put up a 9-man rotation for this one, because I don't necessarily think that I need a Kogi or Ryan Dunn to be on the court at this point with this team, but they're waiting there if you need it with like Lee, Bol and Oso there. But we look at the starting lineup that we already looked at. Tyus Jones going to be playing a decent amount of minutes with Monte Morris kind of supplementing the rest of those 48 minutes. We don't need those two on the court together. We just want them to stagger each other. Bradley Beal obviously playing a good amount of minutes with Booker and Durant playing the most of the minutes. At some point, Durant's got to slow down, right? But not this year. We still need you to be one of the best players in basketball. Nurkic getting a healthy dosage of minutes as well at the 30 mark, right? Grayson Allen is the 6th man playing starter level minutes here, getting about 26 a game. He's going to be a lethal shooter and scorer for us, hopefully again. Royce O'Neal is that kind of defensive and spacing wing that we have as an option on the team. Whenever he's in, I imagine KD moving over to the 3 and stuff like that, probably playing with one of Bradley Beal and Devin Booker, right? And then one of the point guards and one of the centers. That's what I kind of imagine. So yeah, then we got Mason Plumlee. Again, he's going to be more of a passing option for us at the big, just more of a vet. He's in whenever Jurkic isn't in or Nurkic isn't in. So I think it's pretty simple rotation management this year. And then, like I said, Monte Morris is in whenever Tyus isn't. Not a very complicated rotation, in all honesty. I think it's pretty easy. We can always decrease some minutes in favor of like a Dunn or an Okogie if we feel good about one of these dudes, or if one of them's starting to hit in practice a little bit from 3, because then they become much more valuable. But let's go take a look at the lineup numbers last year and see what was working. All right, so here's the Suns 5-man rotation data from last year. So what do we got right here? This was at points, I'm just looking through all these right now. There's only 2 lineups with a substantial amount of data. And that doesn't surprise me because so many people were hurt last year. But here's the one where they've got the most data for, and it was the overall starting lineup from last year of Grayson Allen with the big 3 and Nurkic. It was a +10. It was a very, very good lineup. So that's great, right? We know that something like that works. If you take Grayson Allen out and put in like a true point guard, in theory, it should get a little bit better. I wish we had like a point guard to compare things to on this team, but one just literally didn't exist on the team last year. So we know that the big 3 looks pretty good together. And actually, I'll just go down to like the 3-man data here. And where do we find Durant, Beal, and Booker? Beal, Booker, and Durant is a +6.7, but it's not nearly enough minutes. And that's the problem. There's so many other instances of teams or lineups where they're getting way more time on the court. So these guys never really got a chance to gel, but it was a positive rotation still. So we know the big 3 works and it's effective, right? I mean, we see a bunch of other instances. Their best lineup they ever had was with just Eric Gordon and Grayson Allen. And yeah, they just outscored the shit out of everybody when this one was in. They had one with like Bates Jop as well. He was on the team for a little bit. So that's kind of interesting. There wasn't a ton of like real negative rotations. This one had some substance to it. It was Grayson Allen with Eubanks, Durant, Booker, and Beal. So that's kind of interesting, but that's just maybe Eubanks not being enough of a defensive presence and like this team just not having enough defense or something like that. That's how I'm evaluating it. But there's so many instances of positive rotations when the 3 are on the court that you just have to assume it's going to work together. And then you supplement that with the fact that hopefully you've got a real system in place. You've got some point guards that you can go to this year to go along with the rest of the squad. I feel like this could be a really deadly basketball team this year. I really do. And so with that being said, let's go over to the predictions. Alrighty, y'all. Predictions time, right? This is always the part of the video where we're going to get the most comments, right? So make sure you do them. It's good for the algorithm. Anyway, the West, let's do a recap because that's the conference we're focused on right now. We got the Thunder and Mavericks at the top. I haven't seen too many arguments with that so far. I got the Kings avoiding the play-in currently right now, and we've actually got 3 play-in teams already determined right now between the Grizzlies, the Lakers, and the Spurs. The Warriors, which I actually didn't see much fight in on this one. I don't even have them making the play-in this year. And then we got the Jazz and Trailblazers at the bottom. Didn't see much fight for those guys necessarily either. Sorry, Jazz and Blazers fans. But where do the Suns fit in? I think people could realistically see them at like a lot of these spots right here. But where do I have them? Drum roll, please. This is a stupid thing. Eventually, I'm gonna have to stop doing this in the video. But I've got the Suns at a 7 seed, so just still in the play-in. We've got our play-in established for the West. I've got them as the top-seeded play-in team. I think this team's gonna be really, really good. I'm concerned about injuries. That's my biggest thing. Here's my thing. Everybody stays healthy. You could talk me into this team being a top 3 seed. You really could. Like, I'll say this as well. I'm going to say the top 8 teams I have in the West, I could see all of them being a 1 seed. I genuinely could. That's how good I think like the conference is at this point. That's how much talent there is. That's how much is going to rely on like injuries and stuff like that. I'm just worried about health at this point. Some of these guys are pretty old at this point, and there's some good teams in front of them, man. I think there's going to be some defensive questions. Like, is Booker going to be able to be is he going to choose to really be a big defender this year? Like, is Nurkic going to have another good defensive season like he did last year? How much can KD do when you go to the bench? I mean, what's the question, right? Like, is Ryan Dunn going to be able to play for you? Is Okogie going to be able to play for you? I don't know. There's no buyout market necessarily, so you got to be clever with your trades and how you do things. But this team has a ton of potential. I got them as a 7 for now, but at this point, I turn it over to you guys. What do you guys think? Leave me some comments below saying what you think of the Suns this year. What do you think of the predictions? Like, give me your thoughts. And as always, when you're in the comment section, just be respectful with each other, right? Like, the best way to become a better person is to learn from people, hear other people's opinions and things like that. So just be cool with each other. And y'all are always pretty cool. But if you're not, then I get to hide you from the channel. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't get a little bit of pleasure from hitting that hide button. But anyway, really appreciate you guys. This is the most boring part of the NBA season right now, so thank you guys for joining me every single weekday to kind of like talk about these guys and sip your morning coffee and just, talk some basketball with me before the season starts, because I can't wait for basketball to start. But anyway, to all my basketball sweats out there, thank you, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye.